Hello there. I'm Dr. Autumn, leadership consultant, wellness coach, author, and I'm incredibly grateful to be your host of the Align Living podcast. I'm here to equip you with the tools, inspiration, and practical tips necessary to lead a life of wholeness and pursue greater shalom in your life and that of your families, teams, and communities. My mission is to empower you to lead from a place of holistic well-being. It's time to say peace out to the fatigue, fog, and frustration of living in a place that lacks abundant well-being. Join me as we embark on a comprehensive exploration of spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, social, and economic well-being, all within the comforting embrace of one podcast. So in today's episode, I get to interview Lionel Daniels, and he is an educator and an artist, but incredibly talented. When I started to hear a little bit more about his story, I knew I needed to have him on the show. So a little bit about what you guys can expect today. Why an artist on my podcast about Align Living? Well, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, this pursuit of aligned living is more than just health and wellness goals, right? It's like finding alignment in a way that really helps us get through day-to-day life more holistically, right? To live more whole and fulfilled. And so for me, during some of my most stressful times, just learning to kind of look at life maybe through an artist's eye was really beneficial to me. Like I would get out in nature and I would notice beauty. And interestingly, when I did some research, beauty in the world can have this profound impact on our holistic health in so many ways, from mental health benefits. I love what it does for our enhanced emotional resilience, because just appreciating beauty encourages mindfulness and presence, and it just helps people become more resilient in the face of challenges, which we'll talk more about resilience in Lionel's story in this upcoming episode. But this mindfulness just fosters this greater emotional regulation that can improve even our coping strategies during difficult times. Like, wow, just the nature of beauty, and it can help our physical well-being, our spiritual connections. Just I love noticing things and being like, man, like look at God painting this picture in the sky for me, or just even noticing things within people, social connections. Like I love what beauty can do. And even I will talk briefly about just the value of creativity, because you might not be an artist, but we all are creative in our own ways in some way. And that also can have an impact on our holistic health, which is what Align Living is all about. So I just wanted to make that connection for you and what you can expect in today's episode, and why I think listening to this artist and his story can, really give us some practical tools and insights and inspiration into living a more aligned life. So enjoy this interview with Lionel Daniels. Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Align Living podcast. And today I'm actually really, really excited because I have a really fantastic guest with us today, Lionel Daniels. And the first time I didn't even actually meet Lionel. I saw him painting a incredible masterpiece, like in real time. And I was just super impressed, because I am not an artist, and I always have a deep appreciation for people's gifts and the different, ways that God's created us, like how we have different outlets for our creativity. And then I got to know him a little bit more, and just love what he has going on, love his heart. So obviously he's an artist, but also I think a very innovative thinker and family man, wife and 2 kids, I believe, right, Lionel? You have 2 kids?
Yes, I have twins.
Twins. Okay, that's right. Twins. So I'm just really excited to have him on today. And so you're in for a treat. And so, Lionel, I just wanted to start by asking you just to tell us a little bit more about your background, and specifically, like, what has led you to where you are today?
Yeah. First of all, Autumn, thank you for having me on your podcast. This is really amazing, and just happy to be a part of it. Um, I'm from Decatur, Georgia. Decatur, where they say it's
Mhm.
greater, and it really is. Grew up there. I'm the oldest of seven children, and
Wow.
yeah. Being the oldest, you're definitely forced to be a leader, and there's a
Mm.
lot of pressure on you to make sure that you're doing the right thing because you have six other eyes really looking at you. And so, like, whatever you decide to do, those other six eyes are watching you, and like, well, basically, do what you're doing because whatever you do, like, you're saying like this is okay. And so, just growing up, I always wanted to make sure that I was, first of all, doing the right thing, the things that I felt were the right things that I knew would definitely help my siblings out and like make my mother, um, my family proud of me. And so uh, I just made sure that I was doing those particular things. And one of those things was to like always follow my dream, always follow my passions. Very early on, I was
Mm.
a gifted artist. I definitely started. My parents would probably say at 2 years old because I would just draw on the walls and get in trouble for
Mhm.
it a lot. And so they ended up just getting me a sketchbook, and from there I just kept on just drawing whatever I could see, whatever the popular thing was at the time. I remember Pokemon. A lot of people wanted to catch them all, but I wanted to draw them all, and I did in that
Mhm.
sketchbook. And uh, got into drawing animals, and then into to drawing and painting people. Um, I would say like my story is definitely one of resilience and perseverance. Sometimes you try something out and it just doesn't. It might not work in the way that you want it to work, but just persevering and pushing through gets you to another side where you start to see that success. And so definitely, I saw that going from high school to college. I went to Morehouse College, where I graduated summa cum laude, number five in my class, as an art
Mm.
major, which is something that is rarely heard of at Morehouse. Usually, you're hearing about um, policy or or business,
Mm.
majors getting
Mm.
within that particular spectrum. But it was just a lot of hard work. Um, and then also just sticking with my passion. Like I also grew up playing
Mhm.
football, and so I was playing football at Morehouse, and at one point in time, it's football and art, and I had to like really choose because if you're doing any type of sports in college, sports really takes over your life, and if you're doing art in college, art takes over your life. So it's you know. uh, hard, very hard to balance. And I remember when I had to just be like, which one are you going to choose? Which path are you going to take? And so I definitely chose art. I went through just
Mm.
many different challenges, um, but I came out just a better artist, a better person. Again, like that resilience and perseverance is just something that has been really strong within my life. And then taking that, I remember when I decided to leave Georgia and come up to DC. Not necessarily on a whim, but like I was promised a
Mhm.
nonprofit job here, and I felt like, hey, like uh, DC was very close to New York, Philly, Baltimore. I could quickly get back to
Mhm.
Atlanta, like all these different art hubs. And I was like, hey, DC is a place that I think I want to be. So came here based off of that dream and then also that job. And then that job I got here, it fell through. And so I was just up here struggling, really struggling to say
Mhm.
the least. But I always continued doing my art, and then ended up getting into education, which just a lot of beautiful things came from that. Started off as a paraprofessional at a charter school, and I was doing that, and then like my art on the side, and I started doing paint parties At one point, the organization I was working for was one of the top ones in DC. We were located in Adams Morgan, and it was just really amazing, really amazing. Then I, on the education side, traveled into being an art teacher for a different charter school and started a really great journey there in the heart of Southeast DC. Um, Met and taught so many beautiful children there. Um,
Mm,
working working in Southeast put a lot of things into perspective for me, and the level of need and lack within the communities um, that I was working in, and I wanted to make sure that, again, going back to those role model days for
mm,
my siblings, making sure that for my students that I was always doing the right thing and always making sure that they saw art as a way of being able to not only express themselves, but like that you could also be successful. And so I wanted to make
mm,
sure that I was just teaching them the fundamentals, all the basics, but then outside of that, actually being a part of galleries and exhibits and different things, and making sure that they were actually seeing that. Um, Painting murals and making sure that they were actually seeing me painting those murals or incorporating them in um, was super important to me. Um, and I painted so many. It's painted so many during my time there. I ended up transitioning into administrative work, and with the administrative work, uh, man, things get tougher. Things get tougher the higher up you go, and so doing that administrative work, I was just super stressed out. Then we had our kids, our beautiful kids. They're 3 years old now. Like they came along and trying to really just navigate being a new father and having this administrative job was just very taxing, and not being able to do my art as fully and freely as I wanted to really had some impact on me. And what I decided
mm,
to do about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, was to quit my job and become a full time artist. And a lot of people would say that's something that's scary, but that's been one of the top five best things I've done in my life.
mm. Wow. Wow, wow. So, so many thoughts are going through my mind. I do specifically want to ask you about like some of the ways that you've practically navigated some of those setbacks, because resilience is something I think is so valuable in instilling in our kids. I talked about it in my book, The Playground Leader, and then even as adults, like it's so important to, kind of grow in that space. So I will ask you about that, but first. I did want to like when you were talking about um showing up in the classroom for those kids and uh showing them what it's like to follow a passion, with Align Living, so many times within this podcast, different areas of health and well-being, I talk about this gap we have, like from where we are to where we want to be. And yeah, we talk about like different goals that you might have in important strategies for helping you get there. But I think part of alignment that I haven't talked about as much is, you know, doing things in life that do utilize those passions and gifts. So not everyone in your classroom might be called to do art, but I think them seeing you
Mhm.
pursue something and being passionate about something might have inspired them to say, "Hey, like I like am really into this," and I think it just helps us be in alignment because we're using some of the unique things, and how God created us, so I love that. I just wanted to comment there. It wasn't really a question, but I would love to ask you before you talk to us a little bit about how you've navigated some setbacks, because I know you have some pretty like awesome things to share there. I think also when I talk to people about bridging this gap, from where we are to where we want to be, sometimes we can pinpoint a life experience or something like pretty significant that happened, like something someone said or something we experienced, these aha moments, right? That's kind of shaped our journeys. What would you say are one of those things that has most shaped your journey? Like if you could, just mention one. I'm sure there's many, but I would just love to hear that.
Yeah, definitely many. I would have to say like the most recent one, which is like having the courage to quit the job. Uh, Six-figure job, you know, life life is very comfortable, when you have a six-figure job. And so I remember just hearing God's voice multiple times in multiple different ways. And so I remember, man, it's so crazy. I remember listening. I was listening to a podcast, and they mentioned, hey, you really got to just live your passion. You got to take risk.
Mm,
Um, you know, even if it's hurting someone's feelings, like you can't miss your destiny. And I'm talking about like in a positive sense. You can't miss your destiny. And I had already started to
mm,
have feelings of like, I don't think this space is the space for me at this point right now. Like I feel torn because I'm seeing, my art and my career on an island, and I felt like I was just really like floating away from that. And God just kept pressing certain images within my head. But again, like different podcasts, like a podcast that came on after that was saying like the same thing. And then God even had my wife mention something about just
mm.
me being a full time artist. Then my kids even said something about it. And they hadn't even
Mm.
heard anything, none of the podcasts or my wife. Um, so God just kept like whispering. And then he was like, you know what? You're not getting it. So let me say it just a little bit louder. And I appreciate that he loves me enough to do that. Because sometimes, we hear that voice and we just keep ignoring it. And then we miss out on the opportunities that God has for us because we're just simply not listening. And so
Mm,
it was really then when I was like, God, okay, I hear you. This it didn't even feel scary. It was just something that felt different for me
mm,
because I don't quit things, and so
mm,
it felt different, but I did it, and I was
mm,
very very happy that I did so because I knew like I could impact more people, more children in a different way with me being me as opposed to
mm,
being within this organization where you have to follow all their rules and regulations, and it kind of can take you away from being you who you truly are. And so that
mm.
experience has been just life changing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, actually, something you said reminds me of a soapbox that I've been on lately. Because, like, what if, somebody's listening and they're like, I'm just, I want to hear God's voice. That'd be amazing. Like, but I'm not hearing God's voice. I think sometimes people like struggle with what does it mean to be led by God. But one of these soapboxes that I'm on that I like what you're saying because you also trusted your gut and your intuition and exercised wisdom. Like, obviously aligned living is a lot about like holistically, like this pursuit of wholeness and shalom holistically, right? Like we have physical bodies and a brain and a mind and emotions and people in our lives all for a reason. And God oftentimes uses those. And so one of my soapboxes is lately is just bringing people back to also like, trusting ourselves more, allowing ourselves. The most recent podcast episode I did before this one was about like asking questions of things, like being inquisitive, being curious, like asking why, like you said, you asked, like, is there a better way that I could be using my passion to impact more people that's more in align with, some things. So yeah, like I think that would might be helpful for listeners to hear too. Is just like how you were just also like trusting your gut and your intuition. Like sometimes we just lost the art of that. Like trusting ourselves, knowing like God gave us these things for a reason. Our bodies are amazing, and just also people surrounding us that might have a word for us. So that's really great. That was not even in my notes, but like it's just I think a really really important thing that we could all benefit from and grow in. So okay, so I'm really anxious to hear. I want to hear I know more about how you have navigated some of these setbacks. I know this is kind of like one of the big things I wanted you to bring to listeners is what have you learned about overcoming setbacks, specifically, just to get a bit more practical, like what are some strategies or practices that you specifically have used to help navigate challenges, to help turn them into growth opportunities?
Yeah. Number one, I always talk to God. I talk to God.
Hmm.
I let God know, and I'm so honest with like how I feel. Um, and so like we have this conversation, this honest conversation first, and then I ask God. I ask like, hey God, what are some what are some other ways? Because I know where my path is supposed to go, and I know there's some things that I'm not able to see that I know you are. So Father, please lead and guide me in those ways, so that I am doing what you want me to do, what you called me here to do. So first, I just have that honest conversation with God. If I'm angry, I let God know. Like God, I'm so angry and upset that this didn't happen the way that I wanted it to. And God is like, "Yep, yeah, I hear you." And then what ends up happening, something better always comes along. And
I feel that.
something better something better always comes along, and then you're like, "Dang, why was I so mad or upset about that?" But
Mm,
you come to find out like, "Hey, what's for me is for me." And that wasn't for me, but this right here was so much better than that. Thank you, God. Other things that I do a lot of prayer and meditation. And so I just pray for the things that I want to happen. Usually we do a lot of, I don't want this. I, this can't happen. Da, da, da. Actually, just saying exactly what I want to happen and really praying about it and meditating and visualizing on it. Uh, it really does help me um, move forward. I would say physical things that I do. I shoot hoops. And please
mm.
don't get confused with playing basketball. No, not not playing basketball. Not playing basketball. I do have an athletic build, but I'm more of a football football player body. But I do love to shoot hoops. There's something about being the form of actually shooting a basketball and then hearing the snap of the net when you shoot it just perfectly. It does something for me. Being able to just bounce the ball, especially just doing it outside too, with beautiful fresh air and the sun shining, right? And it's warm enough, not too hot where you're sweating profusely, but just warm enough. Um, it helps,
Mhm.
really bring me out and pushes me to get back on track and actually using um, my cognitive functioning brain, right?
Mhm.
It helps to just
Mhm.
reset me. I also do a lot of drawing or doodling. I'm a doodler. I've been one ever since I was young. You probably could look at some of
Mhm,
my old papers from elementary school, and there's writing there definitely, but there's definitely doodles in the corner. So I do a lot of just
mhm,
doodling or just writing those various things out, which is always
mhm,
just super helpful. Um, I just speak positivity. I would also say that
mhm,
just speaking positivity over yourself, your family, whatever the situation is, has also been like extremely helpful. And last, I'll just say like observation,
mhm.
going
Yeah.
outside and just being still and just observing nature because we're all observers. We
Mhm,
might not always, all consider ourselves artists, and that's okay, but we are all observers. Each and every career that we have, um, it's based off of us being to observe and analyze and think and formulate. So, to me, the first step to that and really um, working things out is just to be out and observe. And so, I'll
mhm,
go out in nature and I'll just look at the leaves, rustle in the
mhm,
wind or like the grass, how it flows, or seeing, insects walk up a grass stalk, right? Or watching birds interact with each other or other various animals, watching water ripple and just really paying
mhm,
attention. It all just brings a certain level of stillness and
mhm,
awareness and gratitude. Um,
mhm, mhm,
that often it just snaps you out of it and you're able to just
mhm,
think more creatively and again
mhm.
again talking to God, but thinking more creatively and just figuring out whatever your situation is.
Yeah. Yeah, I love hearing you talk about these things from an artist perspective because, like, we all have the capacity to observe and notice things. And actually, when you start doing that, it's very life-giving. But you probably do so more than others. I'll tell you, it's something we could all grow in. But I am a basketball player, and I've never, like, I loved hearing you talk about it's like I play all the time, and I don't notice, like, kind of like the beauty in those details of, like, that you did in the same way or like I do in nature for sure, like it's very life-giving to me to get out. But I think if people are asking, okay, so what does some of this have to do with like resilience and pursuing setbacks, like, so many things you talked about, like you're engaging your whole body and you're doing things that bring you joy because I always talk about the importance of doing things when you don't feel like it, like you can't get stuck in a rut, right? Like
Mhm.
it's okay to experience those negative feelings and maybe be in a pit for a little bit, but it's our perspective around that. And if we can intentionally do things that fill our cup a little bit when we're feeling like life is just lifing and struggle and challenge after challenge after challenge, it'll be easier to do some of the things you need to do if you're doing some of those things that just help fill your cup. So it was interesting because you talked more about that type of thing, kind of like, being in nature, observing beauty, doing things you enjoy. And then, hopefully that just like helps our perspective and kind of, in doing some of the things like we don't feel like doing, but we know we need to do. So I appreciate you sharing that. It's always fun hearing how people navigate this because I don't say like, we we prepare for challenges because we know they'll come. It's not like an if, it's like a when, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah. Well, I will tell you, I did a little research because I was curious myself because I love how the body works, just in how creativity and beauty and observing these things you talked about, how they impact our well-being. And it's really, really like every single area I talk about in Aligned Living: physical health, mental health, emotional health, social health. Like there is some benefit in all of these spaces, from just, using your gifts, exercising some creativity, and so on and so forth. So it's very, very real. So I love getting to hear from you and how that has played out in your life. I do want to give you some space as we wrap up. Um, I want to ask you, like, what's the most exciting project or initiative you're working on right now? And then just follow that up with telling the listeners where we could find you.
Yeah, yeah. I have a lot of exciting projects happening. Um, well, one that I actually had a setback, but it was actually a good setback because it allowed me to just reanalyze everything. But I have this children's art show that I've been working on. It's called The Studio, where I in my art teacher role and a puppet by the name of Ricky. We
I
teach
love that.
we teach black and brown children about black and brown artists and their techniques and different skills and the elements of art. And for those that will hopefully follow me soon, I actually built a 12
Hmm.
by 18 studio or in our backyard. Um, and I didn't actually build it was a prefab, but everything else like I created within it to be like my actual like workspace, but also to produce this particular show on YouTube. And so I'm super excited. We had a debut that we were working on, and all of my technology, my computer just crashed. It
Mm,
crashed, and it messed up the episode as well as just a whole bunch of various things. And so it was like, okay, you know what?
mm,
We got to go get a new computer. I think the new Macs just came out today, so it's like, hey, go get a new computer. Let's push the date back and um, let's really produce some very high quality work with this new computer. And so the show again is
mhm,
called The Studio, and I'm just super excited to debut it. It's something that I started within the pandemic um, for my students, and it's something that has just continued to grow and
mhm,
just really beautiful. And so I'm excited to get back rolling with it, and hopefully have new episodes. 7 episodes are projected to come out by January. Um, but I won't put out a specific date. We'll make sure once those
mhm,
episodes are recorded that it will
mhm.
get out to all the viewers. Just really excited about that.
Awesome.
If you want to find me on social
Mhm,
media, my name is Lionel Daniels Art. If you want to follow the studio, it's the Studio Art Show. And my website is www.lioneld.com. And just, man, I'm just super excited to have done this and to be able to speak to all of you uh, just about like my passion. And we just hit the tip of the iceberg with it. I have so many stories. Just
mhm,
it's
mhm. I'm sure. I'm
it's really
sure.
crazy. But no, I really appreciate this, Autumn. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure, and I am going to include all of those things in the show notes, so that your website, your Instagram handles, and all of that will be listed there. And definitely, whether you have kids or not, like give the YouTube channel a follow, because I think the mission is pretty awesome and worthwhile, and I'm glad that you're doing that as well. And of course, if you're local to the DMV and you give him a follow on Instagram, I'm sure you're going to be seeing him at some art shows and stuff and get to see his amazing work. So, anyways, thank you, Lionel, and thank you all for listening. And until next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Aligned Living Podcast. I'm Dr. Autumn, your guide on this journey to shalom or wholeness. Ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery and transformation? Head over to autumnswain.com to learn more and to dive deeper into the world of aligned living. Until next time, stay aligned.